What's up, everybody? This is Tom Lang with Warchant TV and Warchant.com. And today, we're talking about Tuesday's practice, which didn't go so hot. Before we get going, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our Warchant TV YouTube channel. Every time you like the video, we find more FSU fans who are looking for the best content in the business. That's what we do at Warchant TV. And if you subscribe, our content will appear right on your YouTube app home screen and at YouTube.com. We thank you so much for your support. On Wednesday, March 30th, Jeff Cameron Show, Jeff and I recapped what we saw and what we didn't see at Tuesday's FSU practice. Mike Norvell did not like the effort, said it was not up to the standard, so Jeff and I discussed what we saw that was lacking and some of the things that we did like as well. Enjoy the discussion now as we started with a typically blunt comment from our man Jeff.
Practice sucked yesterday, in my estimation. I didn't feel like they were sharp at all, and that was confirmed when I asked Coach after practice. The very first question was it commonplace to have a practice like this, what I describe as a lackluster practice, after a scrimmage? And he used that as an opportunity to talk about not being common, trying to do something that is uncommon. And I think he's right. I think he probably expected it. It is fairly common to see sort of a lull after the intensity of a scrimmage. Everybody ratchets up their level of intensity. You can tell people that you have to be that way on a daily basis, how you go about your life, but no human being can live that way. You can't be on edge all the time. You cannot be hyper-focused 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It is human nature that you're building to a place. That's why Saturday game days are so much more intense, obviously, with more on the line than a Wednesday practice. So you're going to be at a different level, both emotionally, both in focus and intensity, when there is something to be gained or lost, something tangible that day, that night, whatever it might be, in the case of the scrimmage that morning. Jobs are on the line, and guys know that when the lights come on, for lack of a better term, that they're being judged more harshly, more critically, more intently than they were on Tuesday during drills. And so they got to get to a place. All these guys have to get to a place. Well, then there's a natural come down. You'd like to think that if you scrimmage on a Saturday, the Sunday, Monday buffer between the next practice is enough for you to have come down and then get back up. That's what coaches are hoping for. And to be sure, they get back up to a certain level, but not the level that he was hoping for. And I understand when he says, look, we walked out of that scrimmage thinking we're pleased with what our guys know. You know, on display was a level of understanding in the scrimmage. Now, everybody thinks about the physical. Everybody thinks about the run fast, jump high, hit hard, all of that. Execute a pass, make a guy miss, whatever it might be. The things that make up a football game that we remember. But coaches are also looking to be sure that their players understand what is being asked of them within the context of the position they play, the segment group, obviously, and or the scheme. Certainly what the coaches have taught up to that point. So I thought it was interesting and rewarding and I think a positive, even amidst this negative that yesterday's practice was described as, that he said, hey, look, I walked off the field after the scrimmage feeling very good about what our guys know. The reason, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here for him because I think I really got why he was mad. The reason he was upset about yesterday's practice was that when you showcase that level of knowledge on the field, that you can play under intense scrutiny and with real speed and passion and violence and still execute scheme as it's been taught, technique as it's been taught, that means you have no room to take a step backwards. We now know under the harshest conditions that you understand what is tasked of you. So don't be BSing around on a Tuesday and revert back to pre-scrimmage where you're technical and you're learning and you're soaking it in and digesting. Play fast. I know you know. You proved you know. Now play fast. Play faster. Execute faster, 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 so that the games become easy. He wants it to be that the games are the easiest thing you do during the week. All coaches say that. It's true. If you do something so repetitively, so often, so frequently, and in this case, violently, intensely, all those things, then you get out there on a football field, things slow down, it gets easier for you. And yesterday, they reverted back to half-stepping a little bit. The camp, I think, has been a raging success. It sounds like the coaches do too. Yesterday, frankly, may have been their worst day. It sounds like it. We were both there. We watched the practice. Our observations, not a coach's observations, but our observations were that they were very intentional, very slow. It took too long to get set up, play to play. I didn't think they executed at a high level, my opinion there. We don't always know what the call is on the field. I concede that sometimes things can look like they're not executed, but not knowing what the defensive call was or what the read was on every play, you can't always be sure. But my view of what we saw was a lack of execution and a slower practice than we were accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, it's lack of urgency. The one thing that was different yesterday was they had officials for the first time in camp, that at least I've noticed. And I've been to every single one that's viewable by the public, or by the media, excuse me, not the public. So maybe there were some extra instructions on how to line up, or they're double checking with officials to make sure that the things that they've been doing for weeks are correct. But I would imagine they had officials at the scrimmage anyway. So, that's only part of the excuse. But in multiple drills, whether it's offensive and defensive lines are working with scout team players, and then you got 7-on-7 on the left.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching the trenches a lot. I mean, laborious between each rep. And
you ask those guys, big dudes, to hold a stance that long.
Yep.
It's brutal. You're not going to get guys firing off the ball when they've been in a 3-point stance for 30 seconds.
Right. And then it bled over to 11-on-11s, which they, intersperse throughout the day. Depending upon the day, it's not always the same sequence of events, but we saw that in the beginning, which you always see, at the end, which is always there, but in the middle portion as well. And a couple of times guys were flagged. And it's like, well, of course they are. That's a frustration of mine in the course of a game, in the flow of a game. If you're going to run hurry up, then you shouldn't be snapping the ball with 5 seconds left in the play clock.
Right, let's go.
Because these poor dudes, especially the interior offensive linemen, are just waiting, and it's one little flinch and you're done. So that was yesterday, but it was their worst day to me. It was their worst. And if that's their worst, then I feel a hell of a lot better than I did last fall camp.
I think, Tom, there's a couple things here to point out. I continue to be very, very impressed with the ability of Tate Rodemaker to hit people in the middle of the field. He exposes and completes and makes plays over the middle of the field better than Jordan Travis does, period. And it leads me to believe that if this offensive line were really good, as in you could trust them to provide a safe pocket and plays to develop, Tate Rodemaker would have a legitimate chance to win the job. But that offensive line is not going to do that. So all things being equal, you're going to need Jordan Travis's ability to buy time. Now, to be sure, Jordan has a different skill set that Tate does not. And you couldn't ask Tate to try to execute plays outside the pocket in the same manner that Jordan does. So there's a counterpoint there. I'm just saying, ideally, I would think almost every offense in an ideal situation with proper protection wants to be able to make you defend the entirety of the field. And Tate does that better.
Yeah, he does. But I would say that Tate is not punchless on the run, and Jordan is not punchless over the middle.
That's
it's just
fair.
that these are distinct strengths and weaknesses.
Correct.
It's not that they cannot do the other thing, because Tate on the run has made some plays this camp too.
Sure. Well,
rolling out.
He's an athletic guy. There's no getting around that. He's not a statue.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about 40-yard scrambles because of a protection or, somebody got out of their lanes. I'm just talking about rolling out and throwing the football. But one thing for Jordan yesterday that's frustrating, and you don't want to mention a player because that probably violates the spirit of practice, but catch the ball. There's quite a few situations where he's doing enough, and it's right up that seam or in between the seams, and it's, hey, man, let this pay off for your quarterback. It was contagious yesterday. There was a lot of malaise, but I'm sure tomorrow is going to be quite spirited.
Well, it'll have to be, because obviously it's going to be expressed to them in no uncertain terms that Thursday has to be better. I mean, he sent the message yesterday immediately following practice. We saw position groups getting a little extra attention after practice. So, again, I think that you'll see a more spirited and better effort tomorrow. I just want to continue to watch growth. I need both those guys have room to grow. Both quarterbacks that are in the mix, and listen, it's Jordan Travis's job. I get it. I'm just pointing out that Tate's come a long way, and I'm pointing out that he has a skill set that if they were able to protect him, he could take advantage of certain areas of the field more effectively. I need Jordan to get to that place where I say that about him as well.
It's important for the viewers and listeners of this show to realize who's saying that too. That you're saying that Tate's come a long way, and you're saying so without a doubt, not hemming and hawing.
Yeah.
But that's important,
unequivocally,
right? Because you were unequivocally the other way until this new evidence presented itself this camp. So he's changed your mind in short.
Well, I just wish I could see a scrimmage, though.
Right,
the spring game will give us a better idea. Now, I hate that it all boils down to that, but given past experience and the context clues, you've got to look at a guy that has had great practices. But I need you to show me in a game-like situation where there's a measure of pressure, whether that be a scrimmage or a spring game, that you're going to make those same decisions and throws on time. What I like about where he's grown up is there's no more indecision. More often than not, when that back foot on the final step of a drop hits, the ball is coming out. There's not now yesterday they both were disjointed for a variety of reasons, but that back foot hits, you got to throw the ball. And that's an area that Jordan needs to get better, because sometimes when that back foot hits, now I get it, because when you have the skill set that he has, where nobody one-on-one, if you see him, nobody one-on-one is going to get you down. It's easy not to get rid of the ball.